Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. My name is Amir. This is episode 2. We're doing the Western Conference preview and predictions. We got Neil, my buddy, joining us once again. Neil, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Looking forward to today's discussion about the West. A lot of interesting storylines here.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit harder to predict the West. I think the East is slightly more predictable, but again, it's the NBA regular season. You never know. A few years ago, Sacramento Kings were a top 3 team, number 1 for most of the year, I believe. Was it like in 2023 or 2022? Whatever it was, they kind of came out of nowhere. Um, and you never know, right? Like, especially in the West, which is definitely more
Thunder
balanced, I would
last
say. That was last year. They were number 3. Okay,
no,
perfect. Well,
like the Thunder were number one last year after not making or they were out of the play in the year before.
right. Yeah. So this is 2 years ago. The Kings were the 3rd seed, but they were number 1 probably like 70% of the regular season. So you never know, especially in the West. Again, I think there's more balance in the West. I think the East is a little more top heavy, more predictable with like the top 3, 4 teams, especially now that we have Paul George and a few other players that joined the Knicks like Cat and Bridges. So we'll see. But let's walk through the West. And so same format as the last episode, Neil, that we did with the East. Let's go one by one and predict who we think 1 through 8 are going to be um, in the regular season going into the playoffs. And then also, we did predict who was going to come out of the East. So we'll predict who's coming out of the West in the playoffs. And then we're also going to today timestamp this so we can look back at the end of the season who the NBA champion is going to be. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen, Neil, once I pull it up. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, so these are standings based off last year. Okay, so um, I know there's been a couple changes, couple trades, some player movement, obviously, with the T Wolves recently, of course, Cat getting traded, so they have Randall. Mavericks added Clay. I don't remember all the moves at the top of my head, but we'll walk through it. But let's start off with number 1. Who do you think will be the number 1 seed in the West this season?
I'm going to take Denver to finish number one, barely over Oklahoma City. I think the addition of Russell Westbrook will help them in the regular season because they need depth. They just need, and Russ will eat up minutes. And I think having Jokic around is going to be a positive influence on him. He's not going to take stupid shots like he's prone to do sometimes. So I'm going to take Denver in a similar scenario of like last year where there was 3 teams within one game. I could see those 3 teams battling it neck and neck, but I'm going to take Denver by just a little bit over Oklahoma City.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna go with the T Wolves number 1. So I'm gonna base this just off of the elevation of Cat, or not Cat, excuse me, Cat of Ant Edwards. So he looks like he's the best shooting guard in the NBA now, and the growth that we saw and the experience that he got last playoffs, I think he has that confidence. He is developing as a better two-way player as well, so I think that's huge. Like, he wants to be like Kobe Bryant, like Michael Jordan, one of the best two-way shooting guards in the NBA, and so he has a lot of tenacity and passion when it comes to the defensive end. I think offensively he's going to get better as he's becoming more confident and gaining more skills, and he's in his prime. So um, the key thing is, how is Julius Randle going to fit in with this team versus um, Towns? Because Towns, his issue was a little bit of his defense, but then the playoffs, obviously. So, but in the regular season, like, Randall is very similar to Cat, where he's good in the regular season. I think he's a slightly better defender, possibly not much, but he's a good regular season player as well. And Randall, kind of chokes in the playoffs. But there's been reports that there's been good chemistry between the two in training camp so far, and I haven't really been following preseason outside of the Miami Heat, obviously. So I don't know if they've played together or what their record is in the preseason, but I like that Randall is like a similar big to Cat where you can, spread the floor. They also, who did they add in the draft? Was it Dillingham from
Yeah,
Duke?
they traded for Dillingham.
That was the other key too as well. Like adding him um, as someone who could also score, and you have Mike Conley where he can learn and develop behind. I think adding him in the mix was a big piece, but I'm going to go with the T Wolves because they still have Rudy Gobert, and I hate Rudy Gobert, and I don't. I think it's a joke that he's been depoy 3 times, but he is a system. He's a defensive system, right? So they're going to be a top team. They have McDaniel's as well, who is all NBA defensive team. So they have the defense. I think Cat is going to continue to elevate offensively. You throw in Randall, who's a good offensive player, and Dillingham. I'm going to pick them. Who do you got for number 2?
Number 2, I'm going to go with Oklahoma City. I really like bringing in Caruso and taking out Giddy. That's like a great move. Great move. Giddy's deficiencies really started popping up in the playoffs. Oklahoma City could kind of coast through the regular season, but then when the game slowed down, they just left Giddy open for threes. He couldn't hit them.
Yep.
But now you kind of switch that into a defensive stopper like Caruso. If Caruso can stay healthy, Oklahoma City's defense is going to put them in position to win the West when it counts the most. And then you have some young players like Aaron Wiggins, who you expect to improve. Shea's already in the top 3-4 MVP conversation. And then you got Chet Holmgren. He's only going to get more experience. Jalen Williams, he was on the short list of people that could win Most Improved Player last year. Just everything about this team has a stock pointed up. So I'm going to take Oklahoma City, and then I'm going to take Minnesota number 3. I think those three, the West is deep, it's loaded. But I think these 3 teams that we've discussed, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, and Denver, I think they're clearly a little bit better than everybody else in the West in terms of a regular season projection.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on number 2. So I'll go with the Thunder. For all the reasons you said, adding Caruso, who's a top 10 defender in the NBA, he's one of the better guards when it comes to defense, and obviously he's that junkyard dog, energetic, passionate guy. Like if he can hit his 3 ball and be a little more consistent there, then that's going to be huge for them. And Shea is again top 3 to 5 player in the NBA. He's still relatively young. He's 26, 27 years old in his prime. So I think he's going to continue to elevate. He's smooth. Like it's just, he has figured out like how to play offense within his skill set. So the game has slowed down a lot for him. And so he's getting that whistle, superstar whistle as well. Gets to the free throw line a lot, and he's a high free throw percentage shooter. So that's great. Williams obviously is going to be great. They got Dort, who's an amazing defender. Chet Holmgren, like you mentioned, again, he's only going to get better. And he's also a very good rim protector. So because of that, the balance of their offense and defense, I'm going to pick them at 2 and 3. I'll go Denver because Jokic is still probably the best player in the NBA, in my opinion. And so adding Russell Westbrook in the mix will be good for them in the regular season. I think he's going to help. I don't know if he's going to start. Maybe he'll back up Jamal Murray. So it's going to be the best backup point guard they've had compared to guys they've had in the past on the team. I forgot what was the backup point guard's name in the past. They used to have, what was his name? He's not on the team anymore. I forgot his name. Why is this slipping my mind? Whatever. But I'll go with Denver number 3. They're still going to be a top team with the pair of Murray, and as long as he's healthy, and Joker, and then adding Russell Westbrook is going to be key, having that veteran presence there. So I agree with the top 3, even though we have it slightly different. So here's where it gets more interesting, that 5 through kind of 7 range. What do you think is going to be the number 4? Because Clippers are definitely not going to be in here, in my opinion. So
that's correct. I'm going to go Dallas. Dallas seems like the kind of team that will not really be in 5th gear the entire regular season, but they still have Luka and Kyrie. The midseason trades to get Gafford was huge. Derek Lively fit in like a glove as a rookie. So those are all really positive things, and they're going to be a tough team to be in the playoffs. I just don't see them going 82 full out to kind of compete for the top 3 seeds. Luka might start the season slow. He always comes in to the regular season out of shape. He has to play his way into shape, but the way he plays in the playoffs kind of you give him a pass if he's not in full gear until December. But if you're not in full gear till December, the chances of you being a top 3 seed are pretty much slim to none. But I still see Dallas as being a very quality team. I just don't think they're going to rack up a bunch of regular season wins. So I'm going to have them at 4th, where they still get home court in the first round.
I'm going to go with Phoenix. So you still got Durant, you got Booker, who are going to be the anchors of the team. You got Bradley Beal, who's good, obviously, but health is always the biggest issue with him. So if he can stay healthy and play like 65 games or even more, then I'll definitely feel confident that they'll be number 4. But the biggest reason why I picked them over Dallas right now is because of Tyus Jones. So they're adding another guy who can settle the team, and he's not looking to score, but he could spot up and hit the 3. But he's going to put the players and be that floor general in their positions in the spots, and he's going to feed all 3 of those players who can shoot the 3 ball. And so he's going to be facilitating, helping Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Booker off ball when those guys are off ball, even though they're going to have the ball in their hands a lot. He's not going to be controlling the game completely, but I think it's a big add, especially at the minimum. So they signed him at like the veterans minimum for like $3 million or so. So I think that is going to help them. And while we're here still, I guess I'll go with Dallas number 5.
One thing before you talk about Dallas is, are you pro Budenholzer? Do you like that coaching move they made?
He's on the Suns.
Yeah, he replaced Frank Vogel.
Yeah. So then there you go. That's just another reason why. Sure, I didn't realize that. Yeah, he's a pretty good coach. He's solid. He did pretty well with Trae Young in Atlanta, right before he went to the Bucks. Was he on Atlanta before?
I think it was an assistant, or he might have been the head coach also.
I think it was the head coach. I think I think he was the head coach when they went to the Eastern Finals that one year. So I think he's a solid coach. So I think that does help. But with Dallas, I think I'll put them at 5. Obviously, you have Luka, top 3 player in the NBA. You have Kyrie, top 20, 15, 20 player in the NBA. They're developing chemistry continuously. They have good chemistry. It surprisingly works pretty well with the 2 of them, better than most people would have thought. And adding Klay Thompson, who can be up and down, obviously, but another guy who can catch and shoot and hit threes as well, especially playing off of Luka and Kyrie, like the amount of attempts that he's going to get that are clean, because people obviously know Klay is the second best 3-point shooter in the NBA history. It can still make the tough shots. I know he had like a tough preseason game. I think recently it was like 0 for 9 or something from the 3-point line. But I think adding Klay, someone who's still good enough where he can get you like 15, 16 points per game, will be good. And of course, Lively going into year 2 is going to be a good lob threat for the Mavericks. So I'll put them at 5. Did you go with your 5th yet?
I'm
Who do
going
you got for 5?
to. I'm considering the Suns. I kind of wanted to go off the board, but I think the Suns make the most sense at number 5 for the reasons that you said. The reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to pick the Suns is I think Bradley Beal might be washed. But even if he is washed, having Booker and Durant is still enough. And then Budenholzer is a good coach, but he has like the same resume that Frank Vogel had, and it didn't work for Frank Vogel. Do you think the Suns have enough depth to really be one of those top teams that could get to fight for first round home court advantage? I mean, you picked them, so that means yes. But I have a lot of questions about the Suns, and that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to choose them at 5. But looking at last year's standings, like I'm spoiler alert, I'm going to have the Rockets in the top 8, but I don't really see the Pelicans, Lakers, Kings. I thought about the Warriors. I don't see any of those teams surpassing the Suns, even with all the questions that I have. So I think by default, I might have to take the Suns at 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're starting five is good enough. So it's like as long as they're healthy. Um, even if we think Beal's washed, he's the third option. So it's not a horrible third option. He's only 30 years old. He's not 35, 36, Bradley Beal. So he's still young enough. And you can still get you got Nurkic in there, who's a decent center. And I now know the answer to the question I asked earlier, who is the Nuggets backup point guard. Monte Morris is their backup point guard. That was who I was referring to. So you still have Morris, you have Bol Bol, you have Grayson Allen, who we forgot about. So off the bench, Bol Bol's not going to play a lot, but he's going to be in the rotation during the regular season. So you got Bol Bol, Monte Morris, you got Grayson Allen in the mix. You got Mason Plumlee, who I didn't realize who they had. Damian Lee, who's former Warrior. Josh Okogie. Frank Kaminsky's on the team still. Wow, that's surprising. And they also have
is a good call out though.
Yeah, totally. They have Ryan Dunn, another guard off the bench. So yeah, I think they're deep enough, especially they're top heavy enough, right? But then you have those players that I mentioned off the bench. So I think I'm cool with that. So who did you say for 6?
Okay, so number 6, I'm going to go with Houston.
6.
Yeah, so Houston was really close last year. I would say 2 weeks left in the season. They were
elevated.
They were a coin flip to make the play in, and then they got punked by the Warriors, and then they kind of fell off in the last couple weeks. But I think they're ready to take another step forward. They have so many options, and Ime Udoka has proven that he's a good coach. Now that he's kind of installed in the system year 2, I think Houston is trending higher than New Orleans, LA, Sacramento, and Golden State. So I'm going to take them in at number 6.
All right, I'm going to go with Kings because De'Aaron Fox is still all-star level type player. Domantas Sabonis, top 25, 20 player in the NBA. He's an all-star as well. So I like Sabonis and Fox. Malik Monk, obviously, Fox's teammate from college. He's obviously a good threat, microwave type scorer. Adding DeMar DeRozan is the big key why I put them at 6 because they had 10 games above 500 last year. You throw in DeMar, who's in a legitimate scorer. He's only 34. Not only he's 34 years old, but he still scored 24 points per game with the Bulls. 2 years ago, he scored 28 points per game. So he's going to be that mid-range third option type of guy, replacing a Harrison Barnes, who I didn't realize was on the Spurs. I didn't realize he got traded or signed with the Spurs. So you're replacing a Harrison Barnes with a DeMar DeRozan. That's a huge upgrade in my opinion. So I'm going to go with the Kings at number 6 just because they added DeMar and they were already 10 games above 500 last year. So who do you got for number 7?
Number 7, I think I'll agree with you with the Kings. I do like the DeMar DeRozan pickup. That's a huge addition. Yeah, he's 34, but he has the kind of game that's going to age well. It's not like he relies on athleticism and speed. It's more craftiness to get to a spot, hit jumpers. So I agree with all that. I think the Lakers are going the wrong direction in terms of the aging curve. So I'm going to take the Kings over the Lakers for that 7th spot.
I'm going to go with the Warriors at 7. So I think Steph is still like a top 3 player in my opinion. Maybe top 5 player. Yeah, not 3 because you probably got Joker and Embiid when he's healthy, Luka, Shea. He's probably top 5, top 6. So I think because you still have Steph, you still have Draymond, you have Kuminga, who's going to grow as well. He was complaining about his playing time last season. Coming off the bench, he became a starter, was averaging like 17 points, like 8 rebounds per game. So I think he's going to step up. He's only 22 years old. So I expect him to take a little leap. And the other piece, Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Yeah, so with the leap from Kuminga and then also adding players like Buddy Hield, he's been shooting lights out in the preseason.
Always. I didn't know they added Hield.
What's that?
I didn't know they added Buddy Hield.
So yeah, Buddy Hield has been like okay. Like he played with the Sixers last year, didn't really play a lot because his defense was a liability. But adding him with Steph, he's always been a top 3 in 3-pointers made in the last like 6 or 7 seasons, right? So high volume, high percentage 3-point shooter. Adding him with Steph and Draymond, who are also good facilitators, and then they added slow mo. What's his name? Anderson. Is it
Kyle
Kevin?
Anderson.
Yeah. So adding another veteran there also, who can help a little bit. I'm gonna put them at 7 just based on Steph mostly. Um, and Kuminga's leap. But I'm not very confident in that, but I'll put them at 7. They still, were 10 games above 500 last year with a lot of injuries. So I'll put them at 7. Who do you got for 8?
I think I'm going to agree with you and take the Warriors. So just to recap, I had the Rockets at 6, Kings at 7, and now I'm going to take the Warriors at 8. I think a lot of what you said was true. I was a little bit hesitant about what Golden State did to replace Clay, but I didn't realize they signed Buddy Hield. So that's a good addition. It's really the same sort of skill set as Clay Thompson. He's going to be spotting up for threes, and that's exactly what this team needs. I want to see what they do in terms of having quality size. That's always been an issue for the Warriors, and it seems to be something they don't have a good answer to right now. But if Steph is healthy, he plays at his usual level. He continues to be, like as you said, a top 10 player. That's great. It's just a matter of trying to find like that reliable number 2 sidekick. I guess Draymond Green kind of serves that for defense, but they need a guy they can get 20 points a game from
Kuminga.
almost every night. It could be Buddy Hield. It could be Kuminga. I don't really see any other candidates outside of those two, but they need a reliable second scorer to really feel like they're safe from not even making the play-in because the West is so deep. So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow over the course of the season.
Yep. So I'm going to round it out with the Rockets as my 8th seed. So all the reasons you mentioned, Jalen Green started playing at an all-star level the last month of basketball, even though it didn't translate to the wins, when they had that chance against the Warriors to leapfrog them for that 10th spot. But Jabari is going to get better. You got Sengun, who's going to be a really good type of player, similar to like Bam Adebayo, not on the defense, obviously, but he is that similar type of player where he could hit the three, he could facilitate, he could rebound. He's like DeMonte Sabonis to a certain degree. So Sengun's really good. You obviously have Fred VanVleet, you got Brooks, you got the veterans in there. You got Reed Shepard as their top rookie prospect in there. Ime, obviously one of the best defensive minds, one of the best coaches in the NBA. So I'm going to put them as the 8th seed. So we have our top 8, and let's talk about now who you think is going to win the West in the playoffs. Who is going to represent the West in the finals this year? Who do you got?
I'm taking the Thunder to win the West. Even though I did not have them as the number 1 seed, I'm taking them to win the West.
Why?
I think they learned a lot of important lessons in the playoffs last year. They made some really intelligent decisions to take away Giddey, bring in Caruso. I think that's a really playoff centric move. When it comes to the top 2 challengers that we both said in terms of the West, when it comes to Minnesota, relying on Julius Randle as the second best scorer, probably. Maybe Dante DiVincenzo takes that over. It's debatable. Don't see Randle really coming up clutch. It'll be like if it was Ant against Shea in the West Finals, that would be a hell of a series. I would be rooting for that. Even if it didn't happen in the West Finals, happen the second round, all for it. That would be great. I just think the Thunder's supporting cast around Shea is better than what Ant has right now. And Rudy Gobert is not really someone you can trust in the playoffs either. I'm actually still shocked they beat Denver in that game in Game 7. When it comes to Denver, that's a tough call. I think Denver, when it comes to playoffs, would probably fare better than Minnesota. I just don't see them having enough legs at the end, enough quality players. I just think that Oklahoma City's depth is just too much to overcome, and I'm gonna take them to win the West.
Yeah, I mean, it could be any of those 3 that we mentioned. I could see a world where Denver gets it back into the finals because they have the best player in the NBA. But they think they lost too much when they lost Bruce Brown and KCP, because not only are they both defensive minded type players, but they were two guys that can also hit the three. So it was huge having them on the floor, because you also had Jamal, you had Porter Jr., and you had Joker, who can all hit the three ball. And
Porter
so,
Jr. has regressed too. When they won the championship, he was a solid third option, but he wasn't that great in the playoffs last year.
but that could change. He's only 25, but yeah. So because of those losses, I think it might be harder for them to come out, unless Joker has like an insane year, and unless
Which is
Russell Westbrook,
possible. Very
unless Westbrook has a blast from the past, like we'll see. But yeah, this is tough. I'm gonna go with the Thunder too, just because I don't trust Randall in the playoffs, and because the Thunder added Caruso and they have Dort, and they have Chet, and they have a really defensive minded team. But then also you have Shea, who's an MVP type player. You have Jalen Williams, who's also improving every single season. Who's a top two. He's a pretty good two-way player as well. But then I just think offensively and defensively, I trust them more than the T Wolves. To your point, again, Rudy Gobert kind of gets thrown off the court again because he can't guard anybody besides centers in the NBA or power forwards. So I agree with you. I think I'm going to go with the Thunder. Who did you pick for the East again? I can't remember. I picked Boston.
I picked Boston.
Yeah, we both picked Boston. So, all right, who do you think is going to win between those two in the championship?
Well, I'm going to pick against a repeat, so I got to go with the Thunder. So I'm taking Thunder over Celtics in the finals.
I'm going to pick them because I hate the Celtics and I don't want the Celtics to repeat and win. So I'm going to go, I think, with the Thunder as well. I'm going to say Shea is going to be the finals MVP. He's going to average 27, 28 points per game in the playoffs, and he's going to carry the Thunder to their first franchise championship. So I guess we anticlimactic. It's not a debate show, guys. So Neil and I did not plan this. We obviously have different opinions when it comes to the 1 through 8 in both the East and the West, right? So we have similar opinion. It's not too far off, but I'm going to go with the Thunder too.
Yeah, I think we both agreed there was only maybe 3 legitimate choices in the West, and Minnesota and Denver just they're relying on guys that are kind of wild cards and you can't trust them. I don't see any loose cannons on the Thunder, and I think that's going to really propel them forward in the playoffs.
I agree.
Hey guys, I'm adding this clip to the end of the video because I just realized that I forgot to include the Memphis Grizzlies on this list. I think with Ja Morant returning, and they have Desmond Bane, obviously, who's going to be healthy, and Marcus Smart and a few other players, adding Zach Edey to the mix, I think the Memphis Grizzlies are definitely going to be a top 8 team. I think I'm going to put them at the number 4 seed. Originally, I had the Suns in the 4th seed, so slipped my mind. Can't believe I forgot Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. So I'm going to have them as a top 4 team. Number 5, I'm going to put the Suns, Dallas at number 6. And then I think I had the Kings in there, so I'm going to take them out for the Grizzlies. And I'm going to keep the Warriors at 7, and I'm going to have the Houston Rockets at number 8. So sorry for forgetting to add the Memphis Grizzlies into the mix. But anyway, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.